So for this video, I just want to touch on a few things real quick while I finish up the next, big video for lack of a better term. It's just taking a bit longer because the research was pretty extensive for this one, but it's going to be worth it. Just a heads up, we'll be talking about the Vatican, artificial intelligence, and transhumanism. Believe it or not, there's a connection there. And I don't know, some strange things are happening. So that video will definitely be something. It should be uploaded on Sunday, I think, and it's a really interesting topic, so be sure to check that one out. As usual, we have a lot of crazy events unfolding on the world stage. Ukraine's Nato membership is pending, which is probably going to officially start World War III. We have cluster munitions being flown in, a lot of Biden scandals, Trump lawsuits, and the FBI testimony that just happened. There's a pretty long list, and that's not even all of it. We won't get to every story, but here's what I think are important aspects to consider from the past week or so. Alright, so the Ukraine NATO membership. Every world leader knows that this is a red line type of deal, and will bring NATO into the fight. Just as a simple way to explain it, if you bring Ukraine into NATO, then a NATO country is officially under attack, which necessitates a response from the collective body. Okay? Easy enough concept. It's pretty clear what this action would bring. Even Zelensky himself said that the fear of World War III is logical, as NATO holds off on admitting Ukraine into NATO. However, from my perspective, the people on the world stage do not fear World War III. It's actually the expectation. They haven't provided one off-ramp, one proposal, or completed one action that indicates avoiding World War is the goal. In fact, to the contrary, the G7 nations are heading straight into it with a smile on their face. And really, if you think about it, nothing they are telling you about this war is true. From the media coverage all the way to the real reason for the war, it's all lies. Yes, this war is about controlling economic capital and perpetuating a new world order. And it does seem to me that they will sacrifice every young Ukrainian before NATO makes their move and enters the war. And on top of that, military experts believe that war with China will begin sometime around 2025 to 2027, sometime in there. This is all a build-up to World War III. The countries that are moving to this brick financial system under the assumption of moving back towards a gold-backed currency, well, they're going to have a choice. Align with the West again, adopt the new carbon-based economy, and of course, we cannot forget, the new social controls centered around climate change. Or, on the other hand, they might meet the same fate as Gaddafi. You see, they've been working on this plan for a long time, for decades and decades. The establishment is not going to give up on this idea easily. In general, people just have a real 2D view of politics. Think bigger. The motives behind the death and destruction revolve around money and power. And specifically, I believe it's all about controlling the insane profit surrounding the Fourth Industrial Revolution. So whoever wins this war will determine the path that the world is on for the next 100 years. And ultimately, it will reshape humanity as we know it. Okay, so now let's get into the cluster bombs. The establishment types are saying that Russia is already using them, so Ukraine should as well. However, it's really all about the escalation. Instead of providing diplomatic resolutions, they are going to send in cluster bombs. And I quote, "With a stroke of his pen, Joe Biden has rendered UN resolutions barring the use of cluster munitions null and void. Pandora's box has been opened, and the consequence of this decision will be felt for years to come." End of quote. So, they were banned for a reason, and that reason, in large part, is due to civilians getting blown up by quote-unquote duds years after a war ends. Well, that, and I believe also radiation, but you can double-check me on that. However, for example, the United States dropped 270 million cluster bombs on Laos, and I quote, "every 8 minutes, 24 hours a day, for 9 years, from 1964 until 1973. And 50 years later, civilians and children are still being blown up by the bombs." However, do not worry. No, don't worry.
Just to make the point, the Russian dud rate of the cluster munitions they're using in Ukraine is about 30 to 40%. So far more duds going to be on the battlefield. Number two, we're going to work with the Ukrainians, and we are already, but we're certainly going to work with them through and past this war, and after it's over, to work on demining efforts to make it as safe as possible. And the last thing I'd say, Mike, is that while yes, there is an inherent potential danger to civilians on the battlefield once the fighting is over because of these duds, these bomblets that didn't explode. I think we can all agree that the risk to Ukrainian civilians is far greater if the Ukrainian counteroffensive fails, if they run out of artillery shells, if they can't defend their own territory. They are being killed every day by Iranian drones and cruise missiles, and yes, cluster munitions that the Russians are using indiscriminately. The Ukrainians are using these to defend their territory, to win back their sovereignty. Number two, we're going to work with the Ukrainians, and we are already, but we're certainly going to work with them through and past this war, and after it's over, to work on demining efforts to make it as safe as possible.
No, do not worry. Do not worry. As civilians are randomly getting blown up, Blackrock is going to give Ukraine another loan for demining. Of course, their profits will rise, and due to the other wartime loans, plus loans for reconstruction, well, the future of Ukraine will be solidified as a vassal state of global economic corruption. And yes, they call this plan Ukraine 2030.
Let's look 8 years ahead. 2030. The history of the new Ukraine is studied all over the globe.
So, what else? What else? Oh yeah, wow, what a coincidence that Lindsey Graham said NATO would launch a full attack on Russia if they attacked a nuclear facility just weeks ago. And now his dream is coming true, as Ukraine has been warning that bombs have been placed on the roof of the facility, and everyone is just waiting for what comes next. So, we shall see. You know, it's kind of like he was prepping us and getting the formalities in order for a plan that he was already aware of, don't you think? They want this war. I cannot stress this enough. However, if you need some more proof of this, check out the director of the CIA. Yeah, if you remember, recently we found out this dude was meeting with Jeffrey Epstein.
Disaffection with the war will continue to gnaw away at the Russian leadership beneath the steady diet of state propaganda and practiced repression. That disaffection creates a once-in-a-generation opportunity for us at CIA, at our core, a human intelligence service. We're not letting it go to waste. We recently used social media, our first video post to Telegram, in fact, to let brave Russians know how to contact us safely on the dark web. We had 2.5 million views in the first week, and we're very much open for business.
The Ukraine war is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for the CIA, end of quote. Okay then. Also, back to the cluster bombs for a second, Joe Biden says they are sending them because Ukraine ran out of ammo. And if that is true, well then I hope you all realize that if Ukraine doesn't have enough ammo, that means the US military also does not have enough ammo. And yeah, that's a pretty precarious place to be in when you're staring down a world war. And, I don't know, with everything we are seeing in the media right now about our military, you better hope it's some Sun Tzu Art of War type of deal. Appear weak when you are strong, because, yeah, I don't know. If we're going down the path of World War, then they better get their shit together. Now, we do have some good news, though. The Dutch government collapsed, and let's hope that the people there get some kind of justice. You know, instead of just another World Economic Forum stooge. Mark Rutte has been instrumental so far in Klaus Schwab's plan. And really, if you think about it, he was just another version of Jacinda Ardern, just following the plan no matter what the cost is to their people. So he's out, the latest World Economic Forum puppet to be ousted. And we've had a lot of these quote-unquote leaders get the boot, but the problem is, a replacement World Economic Forum puppet just comes in to replace them. For example, Boris Johnson left, and then you get Rishi Sunak. Same agenda, different dude. This happens all over. It even happened in Sri Lanka too. And we actually talked about that a few months ago after their little coup. One guy leaves, new guy promises the world, and then simply continues on with Klaus Schwab's plan. And I am really hoping for someone better in the Netherlands, but we'll see. The global establishment's tentacles reach far and wide. And last but not least, the Biden administration is moving forward with a plan to block out the sun. Yes, that is correct. So, yeah, I don't know. That's going to be a fun time. I swear these people are going to kill us all. And I quote, "The report was released one day after the European Commission outlined potential risks and unintended consequences of manipulating planetary systems to fight global warming," end of quote. So yeah, basically the Commission warned that these technologies introduce new risks to people and ecosystems, while they could also increase power imbalances between nations, spark conflicts, and raises a myriad of ethical, legal, governance, and political issues. And yeah, no shit. And unfortunately for us, blocking out the sun with artificial particles in the name of climate change is gaining traction. However, despite all the risk involved that could possibly harm biodiversity and agriculture on a global scale, well, they don't seem to care. So despite the possible catastrophic consequences, they're going to explore it anyway. And that's a pretty scary thing, don't you think? Given how incompetent they all seem, do you really trust them with something like that? Well, you shouldn't. The government can barely function at all. Now, this is stupid on many levels. However, it is pretty interesting that as they transition the world to rely on things like solar power, they have a plan to block out the sun. And is it just me, or does that seem a bit counterintuitive? Nothing makes sense, and if you question anything, then you are the enemy. So just remember, stay in the pod, eat the bugs, and suffer in the wasteland. Anyway, that's all I have for you right now. I do hope you check back for the quote-unquote big video that I'm working on. It's definitely going to be something. However, until next time, once again, this is HelioWave. If you like the content, like, comment, and subscribe. Share the video if you want to. If you're in a position to, consider subscribing on Locals or Subscribestar. As always, make sure you disobey those true fascistas, and yes, I do hope you have a good night.